What's going on, everybody? Welcome into Believe in Kentucky on the Believe Network. We got Aaron Gershon from the Cats Pause back from a little getaway, little hiatus. My name is Vinny Hardy. AG, man, good to have you back, man.
I appreciate it. Good to be back. And yeah, there's it's that time of year where there's not too much going on, but definitely for late June, I'd say there's a little bit more than usual. So good to be back and talk about it with you here.
Absolutely. Of course, we're coming to y'all on the Believe Network, BLEAV.com. Wherever you listen, if you're an Apple podcast person, Spotify, Stitcher, feel free to like and subscribe. And if you want to rate, give us those little 5 stars. We'd appreciate it. If you want to watch us on YouTube, subscribe and spread the wealth. Tell your friends and let them know you've been listening to us. And if you appreciate the show, we appreciate y'all rating and reviewing and all that good stuff. It just helps us, helps the show grow. And we appreciate y'all taking the time to do it. Man, AG, I don't know, man. We had the bombshell a couple weeks ago, with Vince Maro departing for Louisville, and 2 or 3 weeks before that, we talked about how
Hmm.
quiet it was and how weird it was, and there were no commitments. Last week while you were out, we kind of put a last little bow on Vince Maro leaving. Kendrick Haskins from Wave in Louisville was on. We talked about it, and he had been out of town, and so now Vince is gone. He's had his presser. He's L's up and all that over there. And now we're starting to see some commitment. So is it coincidence? Is it gamesmanship? How do you think it played out when they knew he was leaving?
Yeah,
He knew he was leaving. And did these other assistants just start raking in commitment? How do you think all that played out? We'll never really know, but how do you
we'll
think?
never really know is right. It's interesting though. It really is. Like I don't look. Do I think there's a correlation? Not really. I think it's by chance. I mean, look, this is the busiest recruiting time of the year. It's not just Kentucky that's on a roll. Other schools around the country are on a roll. You saw Oregon pick up a big time quarterback commit the other day. It's kind of just that domino season, and this is going to happen, but it's definitely spicy, right? That 9 of your 11 commits came in the last 2 weeks after Vince Maro decided he was going up the road. So again, I don't know how much of it has to do with Maro. Probably not much, but you definitely. What I will say is 1,000% you see the philosophy change. That's the one thing you could say 100% is this is not what Kentucky usually does or used to do, where it was basically, Vince Maro would take care of Ohio, take care of most of Michigan. When Klink was here, Klink would help him in Michigan, of course. He would take care of Kentucky. Obviously, Coach Schlarman, before he passed away, was, taking care of that. But it was more a geographical approach of how they kind of did things. Now they're doing it more, which is kind of the way of the land, which is position coaches are recruiting their positions. And states it's by position. It's not in the state of Ohio and Kentucky and Michigan. Like they have a Michigan tight end that they got a couple days ago, Lincoln Watkins, a 3-star, that Derek Shea, the new tight ends coach, was the primary on. But they haven't got a single commit from the state of Ohio. And now with Jarvis Strickland decommitted and probably going to Louisville, they don't have a single player committed from the state of Kentucky. Now, the Kentucky thing I still think should be prioritized. I mean, we see the effect it has in basketball, but more, football, the state has really started to produce some really good talent. I know it's not the deepest in-state class in 26 here, but, you'd still like to see them do more damage in-state than they are currently. But, they're changing it up. Like, you go through all these players and their position coach is the primary recruiter on them. So it's just it's a different philosophy. When you lose games, you got to do something different. If you're just staying the same, you're getting worse. I mean, that even the best teams in the world, like, the Los Angeles Dodgers went out and signed Blake Snell this offseason because if you're not getting better, you're getting worse. If you're not doing anything, you're getting worse. That's just how the sport is, how all sports are. So Kentucky switching things up and how they're doing things, and it's led to this kind of role lately. And it seems like some of the new position coaches, Washington, the wide receivers coach, has done a fantastic job. I mean, he's gotten 3 wide receiver commits, I believe, one from the state of Texas. So they're they're on a little bit of a heater right now, and we'll see if they can keep it going.
Yeah, that's you know great for next year. And as
Yeah.
far as
And the one thing we should note real quick, though, if this is the last year of Stoops, none of these, you may not have any of these guys, but it is good to know they're motivated. They're doing something.
that's right. That's right. It's they're working.
They're
They're
working. They have
actually
woken up.
putting in the
And
effort. And
how about they're using the hashtags? Like
yeah,
I saw Derek Shea use it, the new tight ends coach. I saw, I don't know if it made it to Twitter yet, but Instagram, I know they had the Monday hashtag motivation post this morning. I'm pulling it up on Instagram because I didn't see it on Twitter this morning. They posted some summer OTA videos: hard work, hunger, drive, summer motivation. What did we talked about it here 2 weeks ago. They need to just lean into it, and I'm glad they're starting to do that.
yeah, absolutely. So yeah, because there's a Monday motivation from Shay a couple weeks ago.
Yeah,
Um,
lean into it. Why not? You have nothing to
mhm.
lose.
That's for sure. That's for sure. And nobody's going to buy anything until you show it
No.
on the field anyway. At this point, those that are 100% in your corner. I mean, you're not going to sway anybody between now and August 30th. Everybody is dug in on how they feel. It's either I'm
Yep.
completely giving up, make a change, or I'm from Missouri. You got to show me. Or the optimistic ones, I really think he can too. Everybody
Yep.
already feels how they're gonna feel, and Stoops is thinner, man. He's slimmed down too in the pictures there from the Monday motivation tweet. So he's kind of been on the treadmill or something. He's looking slim and trim his own self.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, there's no harm in leading into this thing. Again, like you said, no one's changing their mind on where things are at between now and August 30th, and really now
Mm-hmm.
until their SEC home opener against Ole Miss, assuming you can beat Toledo. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it just is what it is. But I think when you lean into it and have some fun, at least some of these tweets that are just horrible and mean is a lame word, but just angry, I guess is a better
Yeah,
word. Instead of anger, you're at least having like some fun with it. Like it's not as hostile. So you might as well lean into it. We'll see what they do at SEC Media Days as far as leaning into it. I say just go with the bit. And another thing, and we've talked about this before, like send some of your personalities to Atlanta for SEC Media Days in a couple weeks. Send Shaziah Pete, the offense. I know he hasn't been here for long. What an infectious personality! Like they dropped the ball not sending Max Harrison there last year.
no,
They need to market this program a little better, and I like what they're doing there. And on the recruiting trail again, it's simply just to me, I don't think it really is a correlation with losing Maro. The only thing that is very very interesting is clearly they have shifted to where position coaches are recruiting their position, and you're throwing out the map part of it. They're going to go all over the map to recruit their position, and whoever if it's a great linebacker and outside linebacker in Pennsylvania, they bring in Max Mooring, the 3-star from there. Brad White went and got him. Defensive lineman from Texas, Anwar Stewart, a guy who's I believe from Panama City, Florida, and then came up here and played. Went down and got him. Like that's the philosophy now. So I think between using that philosophy and having some recent wins on the trail, and then leaning into this this motivation thing, I think they're finally taking some right steps in the right direction as far as the PR battles that they're facing. But at the same time, like you said, you got to start winning football games when it matters, or else all this is just a fun little talking point here in August.
and I guess in a way, I mean the staff is accountable anyway, but I think it maybe adds a little more accountability to the staff because you go into meetings and complain about your room. Well, look, dude, you recruited it, so
Yes,
you can't
yeah,
be complaining
it's a
about
good
your,
point. Yeah, it's
it
a good
and
point.
every dude has to carry the weight for the depth or lack thereof in their room. It's on you if you don't have the linebackers that you like. You didn't get on the trail and get who you needed. So I think it adds a little more. Everybody carry their own weight.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And look, and maybe it's leading to some better like. I'm this is speculation. I don't know what was going on behind closed doors, but Vince Maro, just hypothetically, he recruits. And again, I think Vince Maro is a pretty darn good talent evaluator, and obviously, he did a really nice job here for the vast majority of his tenure. But Vince Maro is a tight ends coach at heart. He played tight end when he was in college, in the pros, when he was at that level, but he's the lead recruiter on an edge rusher or a wide receiver like a Brian Robinson or
Mm-hmm.
Cedric Works. Like Cedric Works isn't fair because he just got here, but Brian Robinson, right? That's a high 4-star guy. They win a recruiting battle with Ohio State last year. You kind of had a need for him and he wasn't ready. And then during camp or at least during spring ball, the guy was a third and fourth team. So like maybe you don't want your tight ends a guy who's again a good talent evaluator and a great relationship builder. I'm not at all dissing Vince Maro in that regard, but maybe you want to get an Anwar Stewart or Brad White evaluation on that rather than a Vince Maro evaluation. So maybe that's part of it because I do think it's going to sound silly. I guess some people are going to take it the wrong way, but I think Kentucky has a really good staff. I don't know exactly if I think the thing with I don't think Mark Stoops is a bad football coach. They wouldn't have got to where they are if he wasn't, or even go and beat an Ole Miss team that they did last year if he wasn't a good coach. I think the thing is kind of similar to John Calipari now with just how much of his heart is still in it. But you look like Brad White is a hot commodity every single offseason because he does more with less. I think the jury's still out on Bush Hamden a little bit, but even, he has a bit of a track record of having really good run games when he's been a play caller. Anwar Stewart has produced some really good defensive linemen. Chris Collins, Maxwell Harrison was him. Like Klink was gone. So he's done a good job recruiting. Like there are some really good coaches on this staff. I think Eric Wolford, again, the jury's still out. Frank Buffano's been here forever, and they've had some really good safety play. So I think you got to give him credit. Mike Stoops has been around forever. Guy who was a head coach and had some success doing that. He's been a good coordinator in the past. Like there are some really good coaches on the staff, and now maybe if you want something to be optimistic about, it's that they are doing it this way. And they're getting the evaluations from the guys that know their position the best. So if you're looking for one, I think it's the right thing. I think it should have been done a long time ago. And again, this is not a anti-Vince Maro or sour grapes because he's at Louisville. It's just I think it's a philosophy change that a lot of schools across the country have made. And I think it's one that Kentucky was probably late to the game on and is now finally doing the right thing.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And that, I think he was on with Anthony White and Larry Vaught, and he kind of, pushed back and made a case for himself for those that were kind of saying that stuff as he should.
Fair.
If CJ Conrad is healthy for your Giants, that probably is a better feather in his cap for his tight end development because everybody thought he would have been able to have a career and it didn't work out. So that makes it look, well, hey, this dude never
had a draft, not one draft pick.
Yeah. So,
but again, I really don't think it's that. I think it would be sour grapes to say that Vince, look, I don't think Vince Maro is a bad recruiter. I don't think he's I think he's a great person. I think he's a good dude. Like I think very highly of him. I just think Kentucky needed to switch things up with how they do their process because they're losing football games and they're getting outmanned. Like they had to do something. Again, if you're not changing and you're not adapting, you're going to get left behind. Mark Stoops has said it a gazillion times. And I think that's exactly what happened here. And Vince Maro didn't want to stick around for that. And that's okay. And it's just, it would have hurt a lot less, even if it was Louisville, if he left in December. The PR problem is he left in June.
Yeah, that's it. And, well, Braum has come after him several times.
Yeah, they played in the UFL or one of those together.
Yeah, and he was thinking about making the move in December. And, I guess was he close to leaving in December?
Who God only knows with him. That's the one thing I won't hold back on is this has been an ongoing thing since probably the first one I remember is Mel Tucker, but I'm sure it goes even further than that.
And he, for whatever is worth, said that he's known Brom for a long time, like you said. Brom was trying to get him when he was at Purdue, but he wasn't. He, according to him, he didn't want to live in West Lafayette, so that was maybe the reason he didn't go then. So West, I said it with Kendrick last week. West Lafayette kind of takes shade like Starkville does. Like nobody wants
Yeah,
to.
no one wants to be in West
Yeah,
Lafayette.
exactly.
I've
So
never
I
heard
guess
much good about West Lafayette, so I
yeah.
get that.
So that was the main obstacle while Brom was at Purdue. I'm not. I don't want to live in West Lafayette. So now they're together in Louisville, and he gets a fresh start. He gets a new role. He gets to
Yeah.
work for another friend, like you said. So wish him
Yep.
all the best. And it is the rival, and it's like Johnny Damon. Johnny Damon went to the Yankees to the Red Sox. I'm sure everybody was upset about that.
Yep.
Boston fans, New York fans. The whole
Yeah. When he went, yeah, Boston to New York. Yep.
yeah, exactly. So it's just
It's
he
part of it,
made it.
man. It's
Yeah,
sports. It's a
yeah.
business.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. So, but again, like just putting a bow on it, I don't think. I think the recruiting thing's just a chance thing. I don't think it's like, oh, Maro's gone, I'm committing there. But I do think how they're targeting, how they're evaluating is different, and I think it had to be.
Yo, all right. So we'll see if it pays dividends going forward, and we'll know pretty soon. Flipping to basketball, man, we had got guys starting to talk, got summer practice, got some guys having some press conferences. You mentioned Aberdeen spoke, Diabate spoke, the two new guys, uh, and I think all of us kind of perked up at what Aberdeen said.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he. I'm trying to. Here's the quote. I think that got people going. There are two actually, but I'll read the two. He was asked about the similarities between this year's team and last year's Florida team, which of course won the national championship and had just had Walter Clayton, their best player. I said he was my SEC player of the year. Who won it over him? I'm losing my train of thought. Someone won it over. Oh, Janai Broom.
Broom got it, yeah.
Yeah, I thought
Mm-hmm.
Clayton should have got it. I pushed that narrative forever, but whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, he was asked about the similarities between that team and Kentucky. Said definitely some similarities. I think here is even more better. I know that's not proper English, but I am quoting him. Just knowing that the guys we have here and the coaching staff, and then just this university itself, the people are amazing. The atmosphere is amazing. So I think that pushes us. We know what we got to do when we come here. Put on a Kentucky jersey and just playing for the University of Kentucky is a big thing. So that was the first one, and then the second one, if I can find that. We had a lot of great players at Florida, especially the tall bigs that love to run there. And we have just as much here. Our bigs love to run. They play defense and they play at a fast pace. So I think the things that we've got here are just as good or even better. I think we have our team has a real shot of winning number 9 this year. I think we'll shock a lot of people this year. So yeah, that got the Florida Gator fans going, and I can understand why, because they
Yeah.
did just look. Look, I'm going to start with this. I love the confidence. How could you not? You don't want a guy to come in and say, "Yeah, we're not as good as that." What is he going to say? So I don't. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not. This is not a bashing Denzel Aberdeen. Like again, what do you want him to say? Yeah, we're significantly worse than that team, but we'll try. Like he's not going to say that. He's going to be confident. Did he have to say we're going to be better? No. But again, what do you want him to say? Is my
Mm-hmm.
first thing there. But do I disagree with him? Yeah. Look, I think a lot of this Kentucky team, I like the potential. I think they're a preseason top 10 team. I think they have enough pieces if they're healthy and play to their full potential to get to a Final Four. They don't have a Walter Clayton Jr. at point. I don't know if anyone in the country does. They don't have 5 bigs that you could trust to just get a bucket and get a stop. They have hopefully 2 if Jaden Quaintance is good to go, and I think Brandon
Mm-hmm.
Garrison will take a step up, and 3 if you want to throw Mo Diabate in there.
Oh, you
We
put him in as a big. Okay.
Yeah, if you want to.
Okay.
For argument's sake, he is listed as power
Mm-hmm.
forward. So we'll
Mm-hmm.
say, for argument's sake, we'll throw Mo in there. We don't know anything about Yelovich yet. Like he could be fantastic, or he could be meh, or it could be like Big
Mm-hmm.
Z, where he shows in spurts he can be an elite player, and in spurts he could play almost unplayable. We just don't know. So
And Moreno's a true
Kentucky,
freshman.
yeah.
So
So Kentucky doesn't have what Florida. They are not as good on paper as Florida was last year. But I'm not going to get on Denzel. Like, what do you want him to say? Yeah, we're middle of the pack. We're all right. Like, last year we had Walter, Elijah, and Will Richard. I don't know how we could top that. Like, he's never going to say anything like it. But
hmm
you can't. I mean, objectively speaking, is this roster as good as what Florida had last year? No. Though, look across the country, I'm not sure anyone's roster is better than what Florida had last year.
yeah,
That was an elite. That was a roster that was underrated all year long, that
hmm
no one talked about because Auburn, Tennessee, Alabama, and
hmm
Kentucky, nothing against any of those teams, but they were taking up the headlines because they're bigger, not even bigger. Like Auburn's polarizing right now because they have a lot of personalities on that team. Bruce Pearl's in the news a lot. Um, Whatever. Alabama, same thing.
hmm
And then Tennessee's just a bigger brand than Florida when it comes to basketball, at
And
least
all of
recently.
the all of those fan bases like basketball better than Florida. So
Right, right.
yeah,
Like,
sure do.
and look, Florida has a great home court advantage for big games. I mean, I've been there
Yeah.
twice for Kentucky games that's been sold out, even when Florida wasn't very good.
hmm
But yeah, it's just different.
And
Like Florida was down for a while, and they didn't have the same attention as Tennessee and Alabama and Mississippi, or not Mississippi, but Alabama and Auburn. But last year they were kind of. I think people kind of slept on the fact that they were a really good team the year before, and they just you go look at their offense, they're top 5 in everything. They had Walter Clayton, they had Will Richard. They couldn't get the stops that year. That was they lost their first round game like 101 to 100.
yeah,
So they just had an incredible roster, and Kentucky's on paper is not as good, but I see the Florida fans are going at Denzel Aberdeen. They're giving him hell. What do you want the guy to say? Is what my whole big thing on that is just what do you want him to say?
and he
Like,
specifically made the comparison to Kentucky's bigs and Florida's bigs. So in the quote,
yeah,
our bigs can run, and they
yeah.
still got Condon and Hen, Lockton and Howe and
They have all their
you
bigs
know
back except the
Tim
Alexis kid.
Blue and all that,
Yeah.
and they got that 7'9" kid just sitting over there.
No. Yeah.
Just,
Yeah. I mean, they're
so
loaded. And
yeah.
yeah. So, like, look, is he right objectively? No. But again, like, also, like, what kind of message does it send if he's asked about the bigs, right? It's like, yeah,
Mm,
I had better bigs last year. Like, I'm
yeah.
sure that'll go over really well in the locker room with Brandon Garrison and Jane Quaid. So, like,
hmm hmm
what again? Like, do you want the kid to be a downer, or like that's the last thing anyone wants to hear? So I don't have any problems with what Aberdeen said. I just know objectively they're not true. That's all.
Yeah. Just John Rothstein was going through the most compelling conference games, and he picked St. John's and UConn. But Kentucky, Florida, and Kentucky, Alabama
Playing twice.
are gonna be right there because Diabate against Bama,
Yep, at Bama.
Aberdeen against Florida. The juice for those are gonna be through the roof. I like what Diabate said too. Just
Yeah,
comparing his time at Kentucky so far, and from an out of state kid just coming into the program, he said you can just feel the love is different. And I think that's a good way to sum it up because, we're crazy. Big Blue Nation is insane about the basketball
no
program,
question.
about the players, and he can say the love you feel is different. And Alabama has come a long way, and Oats is,
Absolutely.
and they've, even back in the day, Wimp Sanderson had them, Latrell Sprewell, all those, they've had some good teams, but always going to be about football first. But he can just say you feel the love is different, and he's already getting it in the short time that he's been here. And I just thought that was a nice way to kind of sum that up.
Yeah, I agree with that. And the thing I really thought was interesting with Diabate was how he was very blunt, and I loved it about how they kind of were missing him last year. Like they didn't have that enforcer. He said, when we played Kentucky, the scout was they were physicality, they kind of lacked it, so we brought it to them. And when a shark smells blood in the water, they
Yeah.
attack. So I really like that from him. He's a New Yorker, so I'm not
Yes.
surprised.
That's how y'all are. That's how y'all
Yeah,
Northeastern people are, man.
that's
I'm
exactly
kidding,
right.
man.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Yeah.
I wasn't surprised, but I thought that was great. I thought, he said all the right things, and he is. I mean, we talked about it. I think when he first entered the portal, like that's a guy you needed. Like he makes perfect sense. Where if you get him shooting at a higher volume, I still think he's going to be really effective. You know what you're going to get on the defensive end. You know what you're going to get on the boards. He could guard 1 through 5 at 6'7", like
Mhm.
just a perfect fit. And all the things he said are exactly what Kentucky's looking to get at him.
I think for the older crowd, you think Cal's early years, you think DeAndre Liggins,
Yeah, that's a good one.
who's rugged, who's going to lock you up on the wing,
Mm-hmm.
and as loaded as Cal's teams were talent wise, position wise, he never had really standout wings. Point guards for
No.
days, bigs for days, but Liggins on the wing, and 2011, that Final Four run, he hits the three, and he was just a dog on defense. And Diabate is kind of in that mold, and he's working on his shot. He's bringing the physicality, the defense,
Yep.
the hard hat mentality. That's a given. And
Yeah.
now if he's efficient from three, he's working on it and adding it to it. He's polishing it as we speak. So he's definitely uh, can fill a void or fill a need for this team, this roster going forward. Man.
Yeah, no question about it. I think, look, I love really I have a complaint with any of the additions they made. I think they did a really, really nice job in the portal, but I've kind of said it all offseason. There's not a player I'm more excited about in the group than Mo Diabate. I just think he's perfect for what they need. The experience he has, being a part of a Final Four and Elite Eight team, playing in this league, there's just I can't think of anything wrong with with that addition. Like the only thing that go wrong is if he's an issue off the court, which he's not, or if he
Yeah.
gets hurt, which hopefully he
Yeah.
doesn't. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's just I think it was a fantastic, fantastic move by the staff.
Yeah. So looking forward to it, man. And hopefully the football interest can last until
Yeah.
hopefully everybody's not already looking toward basketball in week 2 of football. But
Oh, that's
we'll see.
gonna look. They need to beat Toledo, obviously, and they need to either beat or be super, 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 super like competitive and score points against Ole Miss. Like
Yeah.
if they
Mm-hmm.
get shellacked by Ole Miss, or I mean, if they lose to Toledo, it's already over. But if they get shellacked by Ole Miss, or they get off to a good start and then just kind of fold in the second half, like that ain't going to go over well. They need to get off to a hot start to, like you said, push the basketball stuff back a little bit. Not that nothing, you want the excitement for basketball, but
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be there. So
Yeah.
see if you
Yeah.
can like have a 2018. Not that they're going to win 10 games, but like a point to where like I remember that was my sophomore year at UK, and like no one was talking about basketball in November. It's like, what is going on here? Like
Mm-hmm.
Kentucky got absolutely pummeled by Duke that year in the Champions Classic,
Yeah.
and like
Yeah.
no one was like, it wasn't. I mean, yeah, some people were pissed off,
Mm-hmm.
but it wasn't like the world is ending like when they lost to Michigan State 2 years ago, or they lost to when they had the loss to UNCW in early December.
Yeah.
Like the
Yeah.
world's ending because football was
Or
still a talking point and fun.
Richmond or Evansville, those
Yeah.
other
Oh,
teams.
yeah. Richmond, and with the COVID year, everything, and everyone being inside. But yeah, Evansville was bad. But
Yeah.
like even then, like the football team that year with Lynn Bowden, like that to look forward to on Saturday. So
Mm-hmm.
everything's amplified for basketball too, obviously. But the longer they push it off, like the more of a cushion basketball has too. So it's just it's good for everyone if the football team can stay relevant. And look, it's still fans hate to hear it, but it's still the number one moneymaker at the school, and they kind of really need it to get going.
Even the Georgia game last year, wasn't that week 2, the
Yeah,
13-12
yeah,
game?
that was they didn't score a touchdown, but
They were
defensive
competitive
they were
and they
very
were
competitive. They
in
should have
it.
won the game.
Yeah, so like if you have that type of game, even though it'll have to be more high scoring, you would
Yeah,
think
you
against
got to
Ole
have it
Miss.
higher scoring.
You think back a few years ago when Ole Miss came here. It was the 41-40,
Oh my
forty-two
God, the
41. They
COVID
should
game. Yes,
have
yes.
won that one too, but DK Metcalf and them were there.
Oh, that was 2017. You also had the 2020 game where Matt Ruffalo missed the extra point that would have put it in double overtime.
Yeah, there's all these Ole Miss. Oh my gosh.
Craziness with Ole Miss.
Yeah.
And
So,
then and then obviously, Marion not getting set and
oh yeah, yeah,
Levis
yeah,
taking the snap
yeah,
the second early.
yeah. So was that 20-19 or some kind of weird 20?
22-19, yeah.
Yes, yes. So
Yeah, they play weird games with Ole Miss. And then they beat
any
them when they had no business doing so with
and
half
then
their
won
secondary out.
one game the rest of the year after that Ole Miss game. I mean,
Yeah, it was Murray State. Yeah.
they were 3-2 after that, and then didn't.
They didn't win a single other game and they weren't competitive in a lot of them.
Golly, it's unbelievable. See, any version of a knockdown, drag out, go toe to toe with Ole Miss, and
That'll
yeah,
do
I
that'll
got
do
you.
you some favors. And
Mm-hmm.
look, they need to win an SEC. They haven't won an SEC home game since the Florida game in 23. So I believe that was their SEC. They've lost 7 in a row.
That's when
And
Ray Davis like ran for 300.
think about it. Yes, think about it
Yeah.
this way: Kentucky's won 2 SEC home games since I want to say 2022. They beat Mississippi State at home. Did they win another? I'm going to double check on that because I know they lost to Vandy and they lost to South Carolina at home that year. I want to see if they won another SEC game that year. Hold on one second. 2022, they beat Missouri on the road. I was there. Okay, yeah, that was their only one. So they've since 2022 they've won 2 SEC home games. They beat Mississippi State in 2022, and they beat Florida in 2023. So in that span, South Carolina and Vandy have won the same amount of games in your stadium. South Carolina and Vandy, who used to be your punching bag.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you don't start winning games at home, like that's the biggest thing. Like, yeah, you want to have a respectable record. You want to get back to a bowl, yada yada yada. Win at home. That does a lot of good because there's some people that really just care about those games at Kroger Field because that makes their experience so much better. Uh,
Mhm.
Obviously they got shellacked by Louisville. They did have a Louisville win at home mixed in there, but they also got shellacked by Louisville in there. So win an SEC home game. That they have to win multiple if you can, obviously, but start with one. And if they
Yeah.
were to win week 2 somehow, some way, and look, Ole Miss is good, but I don't think they're going to be what they were last year. They lost too much to be what they were last year. Jackson
Mhm.
Dart, Trey Harris, Prescorn, all those receivers, they're all gone. Like it's just impossible to make up that much in 1 year, even with the portal, in my opinion.
Mhm.
So they're not going to be, and you beat them when they were less dangerous. So clearly, Mark Stoops, and you've held them in check outside of the 2020 season. So
Mhm.
clearly, Mark Stoops knows what he's doing against Lane Kiffin's defense or offense, rather. So, like, that's not an impossible. It's not a schedule, and you're like, but it's not
Yeah.
like you know. I guess a better example, like Georgia's not coming in week 2. LSU with their roster this year is not coming in week 2. Like it's not impossible.
It's
They got to.
manageable.
It's
Yeah.
manageable. It
Mhm.
really is. Even with this team, with all the question marks, Kentucky obviously has.
We talked about too last week. What the idea they're talking about. Starting to put stuff around Kroger Field, entertainment or
Yeah, I think.
bars or whatever.
Yeah, they
Kind
have
of
to.
and some stadiums do. You go to Atlanta now, they got the Battery at Truist Park, got
Yeah,
all that stuff around the park. Uh, they've AT&T for the Cowboys are starting to put stuff, but for a while there it was just the Cowboys Stadium and then the Rangers Park, and there was
yep,
nothing. And they're starting to put stuff. You go to Fenway,
yeah. Oh yeah,
all
it's a
the
great
bars
area
around
now.
there. Oh man, so much stuff there. That's great, but the product on the field still has to be worthy of them coming out.
No question.
And look, imagine if they had the bars and the entertainment when they were going 9-3, when Benny Snell was becoming the
Mm.
leading rusher. Imagine if all that was already built around Kroger Field, the vibe and the atmosphere of what it would have been, because the product on the field and the fun stuff around it kind of goes hand in hand. They can build it now, but imagine if we'd had it built last year and you're 4-8. Nobody's gonna be excited to be hanging out and all that stuff that you built. So
Yep.
get the product on the field on point, and then the rest just kind of takes care of itself. And then it's fun. And then hey, you want to go hang out at the bar. You want to
Everyone
come
will
there.
forget this crap.
Yeah,
Like winning cures all. It
yeah,
literally like it just cures all. Like I could. There's so many years. Like, look, the Giants. I'll give you an example of my sports fandom. The Giants in 2022 had no business of doing anything that year. Like, it was the first year under Dable and Shane. They blew things up. The roster wasn't very good. They found a way to the playoffs, and the fan like that was, and they won a playoff game for the first time in since the Super Bowl year in 2012, and it was like euphoric. It
yeah.
ended up setting us back because we needed the draft pick earlier, and it forced the Giants to make some financial moves they weren't ready to take because they're coming off a winning season. You can't just go and rebuild again. But like it doesn't matter. Like if Kentucky goes out there this year and shocks everyone, everyone will be happy, and you'll have that excitement again going into 2026, whether Mark Stoops is back for another year or not. So
Yeah.
winning just cures all. It really does at the end of the day, and it doesn't matter how you do it. It doesn't matter if your roster like you have no business doing it. You win games, you bring intrigue. That's just what it is.
Yeah. Can't agree more, man. Can't agree more. So fun chopping it up, getting caught up for this episode. Uh, Everybody go follow you on the Cat's Paws. Got what you got coming down the pipe. It's getting to be what yearbook time or
Yeah,
y'all.
football yearbook was printed on Monday, so they should be coming out here pretty soon.
Okay.
Hopefully, people will be motivated to buy them. If you see what I did there,
Yes, I did.
but yeah, and we're already getting to work on the basketball yearbook, so that'll be there before you know it. So
Cool, cool. So follow Aaron at A Gershon 99. Check out all the stuff he's putting up at the Cat's Paws. Follow us at Believe in Kentucky on Twitter. Go to the link tree. Got the YouTube. It's got all the links there. Put clips on TikTok. We got stuff on YouTube. You can listen. You can watch. But subscribe, rate, leave us a little review. Look, we've had Tennessee fans and Louisville fans go and put nice stuff in the comments and leave 5 stars. So Cats fans, if they can do it, you know y'all can do it. so AG man, we'll reconvene next week. Unless we have some breaking news or something. But we appreciate everybody takes the time to watch and listen and follow us on the Believe Network. It's been another episode of Believe in Kentucky, and we're gonna get on out of here. Go Cats.